What's up, everybody? It's RobLive. Our guests have me cracking up because they're the first two to ever literally dance to our theme song, and it's just
everybody doesn't dance to that. It's
We were
fantastic.
chair dancing.
So before I had to work on this because we just met, and I love that we just met because I'll have some really genuine, basic questions that I should probably know, but since I don't, it'll come from genuine curiosity. We have Jen Davis and Mark Alvis in the building. Welcome to the RobLive show. And once again, Jim, thank you for coming through. Jim, the man behind the control boards, a.k.a. James, a.k.a. the mastermind.
Yes. Anytime, here I am.
And so, you guys, this is how RobLive works. Jim will call me like random Wednesday night and be like, I've got the best guest. I'm like, who is it? Bring him. And they're like, no, you don't understand. These are my gurus. Like, I meet with these guys about twice a year. I learn from them. And I said, we need them. Bring them in, Jim. And so I think we kind of tricked them and said, hey, we're going out for drinks, but stop by the studio. I'm sorry, guys. We
got drinks here. So
we had to do it.
Yeah.
So I apologize for tricking you guys into
No,
this.
it's all
They're
good.
like, dude, we're coming in for drinks. But I want to thank you guys for coming here. And I want to start with the origin story. You guys said something very profound to me off camera, and I want to share it with our audience. And for anyone out there who's trying to put some meaningful content, you always have to keep your audience in mind. And I think I'm going to paraphrase this, but Jen, you had said something like, imagine that a young version of yourself is watching the show who's looking to be inspired, and that you have to keep that in mind when you are sharing on camera, that you inspire or educate that audience in some way. Oh, I chopped that up. Can you clarify for us?
That's basically it. There's one of my colleagues says that all the time. Do the show for that person out there who's watching, who it's going to click, and they're going to want to do what you do, and it's amazing.
I love that. As an educator, I'm a teacher. You know, Jim's a teacher, and we're always looking for people like you guys that are not only amazing at what you do, but willing to share. Because sometimes, you know, we get so into our work and we become purists, and we're like, you know, I just don't have any mental space to share what I'm doing because it takes so much of my energy to make it. And I respect that as an artist, but you guys are at the top of your game. And Jim said, I think they're willing to share. And I said, sneak them in here, give them a mic, and pretend like we're just. So we're going to pick your brains today. So Mark and Jen, I want to start from the beginning. You guys are both originally from the Central Valley or not?
I'm actually, I was born in
Reedley, California.
somewhat close to Hanford.
No, I grew
Closer to Sanger.
Yes. Now we have some Reedley talk we can do. Me and Ed's.
Yeah.
Back
Me and
in
Ed's
the
is
day.
the best.
Yeah.
I lived in New York. New York pizza is great. Me and Ed's is my heart.
Wow. Do you hear that, Me and Ed's?
There
Me
you
and
go,
Ed's
Me and
is
Ed's.
the best.
We better get a sponsorship out of that one. She said better than New York and lived in New York.
I miss it. Yeah.
Me and Ed's. Okay, so you grew up in Reedley, and Jen, you grew up where?
Fresno.
Fresno. And high school, where were you guys at high school?
I went to 3 different high schools. San Diego is where I graduated from, and then I came back to go to Fresno State.
Oh, okay. And Mark, you
I
went
went to Reedley High School.
Reedley. You were a pirate.
A pirate. I'm still a pirate. Went to UC Santa Cruz. Graduated from UC Santa
The
Cruz.
Banana Slugs.
That's it.
You know, it's funny is like these schools are, you know, prestigious. They've been known for years, but then you have some random pop culture reference to them, and all of a sudden they're relevant, right? Pulp Fiction, John Travolta wore a UC Santa Cruz Banana Slug shirt, and then all of a sudden people knew the Banana Slugs.
Yeah.
I knew the Slugs because I went to Menlo College. We were a smaller school, and I played soccer, and one of our arch nemesis was the UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs, and we go play. And I remember the field, Jim, literally it was like on the edge. And if you kicked the ball far enough, it'd roll down the cliffs, right? I want to say there was water there, right? Is that accurate? Is it near the water?
In Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Oh, eventually it hit the water.
And I was
Not
like-
right away.
I was like, this is impressive.
Where's Menlo?
Menlo
Park?
is, Menlo Park. It's right down the street from Palo Alto, Stanford.
Okay.
Little
That's where
tiny school.
Okay.
The Mighty Oaks
Uh,
of Menlo.
That's about the size for Santa Cruz to play against. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, here's what I always intrigued by. you guys are in a very unique business. And what I've always been told about, working with the media and producing shows and learning all the technology behind it, there's really not a school that can replicate it. It's kind of an on-the-job type thing. Is that accurate?
I learned a lot at Fresno State.
Shout out to the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I loved my time there, and I felt pretty prepared to go to work for Channel 47. And then there was so much more to it that it just layered on what I'd learned at Fresno State.
And what was your major at Fresno?
I was telecommunications broadcast option.
Wow.
So it was for broadcasting.
Now, I want to share something with you guys because you're in the industry and you've been in it for a long time. So sometimes we kind of forget or lose ourselves in that. And I'm not saying that's the case, but if it is, us who are not, in media, it's kind of like this distant, far planet, right? And we just don't understand it, but we enjoy it and we see it happening. And so whenever someone says, hey, I'm going to go reach for that star and be a part of the process, I feel like it takes a special mindset. What triggered both of you to say, hey, I'm going to be a part of television. I'm going to be part of creating the story that people watch, millions of people watch. What was your aha moment? Said, I'm going to get involved in this.
I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I was at UCSD first and then ended up at Fresno State, and they didn't have filmmaking, but they had broadcasting. I was like, oh, this is same enough.
Yeah.
And so I got into it, and I got my first job at Channel 47, where we met. And they start you on prompter as the first leg of production.
So for regular people, prompters is where you type in.
No, you just roll this little dial of the scripts so that the anchor can read. The script, but you're controlling it for them.
Are you in control of what they say?
No,
Like, you type it out?
producers and the writers write all that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just operating
That's
the machine.
me. That's me.
Oh,
Yeah, so he was a writer.
And so, Mark, you first started at 47 as well, or did you have prior?
So she's a lot smarter than me, and actually went to school to learn.
Oh,
she
okay.
did. And so it kind of shows you how good, what the importance of that is. Look at what she's doing now and what I'm doing now.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah. Anyway, so the writing happens separate from what she does. She's production.
Okay.
So she's not the person writing the stories or the scripts or whatever.
Putting it all together.
But she is the director, and that means she's in charge of everybody.
And so when did you first get into the writing portion?
I actually went to school for writing.
Okay.
But not for broadcast, I was doing short stories and plays and stuff like that.
So the original dream was to be a writer?
More going back to what you originally said, a friend of mine was working at Channel 47. I was doing my own video photography production company, and he goes, and not making any money, and he goes, hey, do you want to come work at Channel 47?
It's like that.
And I was, the next day, I went there and I interviewed, and they had me out shooting and producing my own shows that day, and I'd never done it. Yes, learning. That's what you
learning
said.
on the fly.
Learning on the job, yeah.
And that takes a level of courage that I admire, because a lot of times we can easily come up with the excuse, hey, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm going to take a step back. And you were like, nope, I'll go ahead and make this story happen.
It was fun.
Well, do you remember that first story?
It was out here, actually, at some winery over down on Avenue 9, I think. I don't remember the name of this. I could probably take you over there. But that's what it was. It was some, just like go. I don't know what I'm doing. I barely knew how to use the camera. And they said, just go do it.
Do you remember what year this was?
When would that have been? 90.
Before 95. So.
Yeah, 93.
Because my next question is, how big was the camera?
Bigger than that one.
You guys see, Jim,
I was looking at that one. I go, yeah.
That's little.
The Ikegamis.
The big
Oh, yeah.
They had the shoulder pad on it.
So
It's easier to shoot when you can put it on your shoulder, because then you can balance
I
it.
have
You got one in your
I have
collection,
an
right?
Ikegami in my classroom. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he had one
It's
because
a
I've seen it.
$43,000 camera back then.
Back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Back then.
Good camera. Yeah, it was a great camera. But
So what are they using today?
what are they using?
Yeah, is it much smaller?
I'm
$3,000.
using. I'm using.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm using a Black Magic. What is that thing called? pocket cinema camera,
Pocket.
4K, but now it's a 6K, right? Are you using any of
Much
those?
lighter.
I don't push that because the files are too big for the kids to edit.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point?
What's the
Yeah.
point in doing it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we used on our last show.
Our TV show.
Wow. Okay, so Jim, Mark, and Jen at some point all came together at Channel 47.
They know me as James.
James.
That's
yeah.
James.
That's James.
I don't know
Okay.
this Jim person you're
This
talking
is
about.
Jim,
The-
yeah.
who's this Jim we referred to? So, James, talk about the first meeting impression hanging out with these guys.
Back then when we all met?
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't know.
I don't remember.
I think
Just
I
all of a
was-
sudden,
We were
just, we were all
always
friends.
together.
So
Yeah, we were
yeah,
always
I think a big
together.
thing was we were all in the building doing different jobs. So we weren't all like around each other.
Yeah.
Like we all had specific
Yeah, because
jobs.
he was always in the field doing things, and
yeah.
I'm
You're in the
always in the
field.
control room.
You're in the control room,
Yeah.
and you're out on the
I
field
was
with the camera.
I was a photojournalist. So
Okay.
during a show, when going live, Jennifer would tell us what to do out on the field. If we were setting up live, to make sure our lighting's right, make sure our mic checks with the reporter and stuff like that. So we would communicate with her through our headphones and through stuff. Yeah, it's a process.
That's a lot of
Oh yeah,
details.
you
But-
have to set everything up.
But you
just
may
like in
not
here.
even see her.
No,
Like,
Yeah.
we
some people
wouldn't-
have never seen me.
No,
Like I worked with James. We did the same job, and I didn't probably even see him for.
no.
That didn't mean we did the same job in the same building for the same company, and yet we didn't work together. Like
So strange
that
how
way.
that works.
It
Although we
is.
did
It's
probably a
weird.
lot of sports together.
Yeah, when
yeah.
you cross paths and then when you have downtime,
Yeah.
you almost didn't want to be seen doing nothing because they'll send you right back out to doing
Yeah,
something
that's
else.
right.
So you're like, oh,
have to look busy.
Where's Mark? Oh, he's on his 15th story. It's like, he's been sitting around. No.
So you just wait for the Christmas party.
Yeah.
Like, ah, there you
But
are.
I think we were all the same age-ish range, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we
We're
kind of
5 days apart.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
April.
What?
Yeah, we're April
yeah.
birthdays.
So so then we just all kind of, and back then it was. I mean, I hate to say it's changed, but it has. But it was so fun.
It was so
It was
fun.
really fun.
So
We had the best time.
It was
a
really fun.
blast.
So it's been described to me, and I want you guys to clarify, as organized chaos. Is that accurate?
It's fun chaos.
Fun
Is
chaos.
it organized? When it's on the air, it's organized, but the rest of the time,
I wouldn't use chaos. That's too strong. Maybe unorganized
Just
to a
unorganized.
degree.
It was just a
But-
mess that we made work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
We made it
day
work.
was,
And the beauty of it was, I think one of the best things that I tell my kids is going into the media every day, Robert. We know what we're doing for the day. We have our lesson right now, right? We know what we're doing on Monday. We know what we're doing Tuesday and
Yeah.
through the week. You walk into the media at the station, you have no idea what's going to happen. You're walking in
You
and
can't.
we no and
and it
because-
could change.
and it changes.
Even if you thought you
Yep.
knew, then it changes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you
changes.
put all that work into a story, and all of a sudden there's a traffic jam blocking, and now that all went out the window.
Yeah.
Were
And
you
now-
were you there when the jet crashed on Olive Avenue? Were you there yet?
Yes, but I was an
just-
intern. I was
You were
an
ne-
intern.
Were you there?
emergency landing on
I don't
the.
remember.
It
Well,
crashed. It
because of what he
crashed.
just said, it
Yeah.
just that is what hit me. We're doing a live shot from Swanson Farney Ford or something. No, it was the one in Fresno, the Ford in Fresno. It was Christmas, right before Christmas. And we're there doing, it's more like a kind of almost a commercial. It
Yeah.
wasn't a commercial. And we talked about this earlier. Julie Hogan was the person, the reporter person, working with us.
Yeah.
We had the live truck there in the parking lot. What's the name of that Ford? The one right Bullard and 41.
Swarney Ford sounds right
no,
to
it's
me.
not. It's not. It's not.
No?
That's the wrong one. It doesn't matter.
Did you get out of your shot?
No,
Oh,
he's
mine.
in it.
Anyway,
Producer
so we're all
Jan
set up.
is-
We're doing this stuff. We probably had 2 or 3 cameras there, and I'm like probably just running the live truck or something. I don't even think I was a camera guy.
Yeah.
But there was, she was there, and she hears on the scanner, Julie Hogan,
That's real news. Is when they have the scanners
real news
on 'em.
person, and
A
she's
real news
listening
person
to
has
it, and we're doing this like commercial for whatever the Ford place was
Yeah.
for Christmas kind of thing. And she goes, guys, I think we might go over and cover this story. A jet had crashed on, I think it was Olive Avenue.
Oh my God, I didn't hear this story.
Yeah.
And so, how soon are you
Uh,
on the scene after the accident?
So we, nobody listens to Julie.
Oh.
That's why I was
Poor
asking
Julie.
you if you were there.
No, I wasn't. I
was
was
m-
editing.
So
We
Mike,
love you,
Mike,
Julie.
Mike Avila, I think he was he was close to where it happened for some reason. So he was the first. Mike Avila was my mentor at the at the station. He's the one that taught me how to use the camera. He was there probably within 10 minutes, and the rest of us, showed up after him. And it turned out like, okay, so obviously that's a big story, national.
Yeah.
So people back in Washington hear it, and they go, "We need these pictures now." And we were the only station at the time in Fresno that had a satellite uplink capability, and we actually worked with Fresno State.
Wow.
That's just in response to everything changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
Wow.
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
So I see it from your perspective, Mark and James, because you guys can easily adapt and just kind of, all right, let me go over here. Not say it's easy, but it's a lot easier. But Jen, you've planned things out. You've got all this.
Okay, so the producers and the writers and the editors stack the show. And there's all these scripts, and I figure out which cameras are going to do what, and where they want their videotapes, and where we're going to have music, and all of that can just get blown out. So I stack the show in how I need to do it
Yeah.
with what's going on. But you're always ready for breaking news to just get in there and mess it up. And I was in the chair when the first plane hit the first tower.
Oh. We got to talk
about
about that.
everything changing. So you
Wow.
have your show that you think is how it's going to go,
Yeah.
and it's different all of a sudden.
So
So you just adjust, and you're like, where are our sources? Where's the information that we can get? The producers are running around looking for, why did this plane crash on the road?
So this is-
Just everybody goes into trying to get the information so we can tell viewers.
On a
So-
deadline. You're on a crunch time all the time because
Yeah.
you're
And
like,
you're
okay,
live.
she had this. I'm just speaking for her, but she has the show stacked.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, all hell breaks loose 3 minutes before the show starts.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're like, okay, we have to dump the A block to bring in everything from what's going on out in the field. And now she's having to restack. Mind you, you still have to fit it all in a 30-minute window.
yes.
And
Unless it just stays on.
Unless it stays on. Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
huge. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
The fires.
So
it's just
you
crazy.
just brought something to mind that I just realized everyone here in this room was involved in media on 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go from each perspective. You said that you were stacking a show
Yeah, we were on the air.
on air, and then you get the call.
There was my boss was running prompter that morning, and he said a plane just hit the World Trade Tower, and
What was your first thought?
like, wait, what? What do you mean? And so
Wow.
then he's telling me, and the producers are telling the anchor sitting on the desk, and so he said that, okay, we've got a feed here of this, and so we put it on the air, and then the next plane hit, and then that's when you know that something bad is happening.
Was there any emotion happening behind the camera where people were kind
That
of
was-
shocked or
That was the first and maybe the only day I've seen news people cry, because
God.
you have to separate news, because sometimes it's really awful.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do your job, and so you separate it. And that was the first day that people were really upset. And everybody was calling their families and where is everyone?
Yeah.
Because there was that other plane that crashed in Washington, D.C.
yeah, there was
And
4 total,
There was
right?
4, and then there was
the
it
Pentagon.
Pencil-
The
Pentagon.
Pentagon.
Pentagon?
The one that
Yeah.
the people took over and crashed it
Flight
into the ground.
92 or
Pennsylvania.
93? Flight
Yeah.
93. So Mark,
Yeah.
where do you remember that time? Where you were at?
I was asleep.
Oh,
A lot of
okay.
people were. It was like 6
and-
a.m., 6,
yeah.
6:15, 6:30.
And I don't know. She's, because of her resource, and this has happened several times in our communication. She's the one that told me. She
Oh.
called me and
Wow.
said, "You need to turn the TV on."
Mhm.
And I,
Wow.
I didn't even know because I was just at home sleeping.
Now, do you
Mhm.
immediately go into the studio, or you just process it? and-
Not that time. No, that was.
Sometimes
No.
people do come in. They know it's going to be big and they need help, and they just start showing up.
All hands on deck.
I did.
Because
I did.
because people used to carry the scanners,
Mhm.
or like something big like that
Yeah.
would have been everywhere. But when it's more local, there was always John Wallace would always have his police scanner with him, always listening,
Really?
always listening, walking down the hall in a suit, ready to go in the air, always listening. And there's so many people like that would listen to the scanners, and they'd know when something was happening. And I never see anybody like that now with scanners.
So
It just isn't.
Here's what really impresses me about the whole thing for you guys is that, we're viewers at home. I remember being at home in Sunnyvale when it happened. We have all the freedom to respond and be emotional. But you guys are like now triggered into action and have to work with the same emotions we're all having as human beings. And that really impresses me because I don't think I could have been functional that day. I remember calling in as a teacher, like, I can't come in today. I'm just trying to process everything that just happened. And I've already had a fear of flying at the time, and so that was just on a personal level, but never mind that all of the thing that was happening to our world and all the questions we had in that moment, and then had to have to work. I kid.
She just went through that, just coincidentally, she just went through that again with the LA fires.
Yeah.
Yes,
So she was
the
in
LA
the-
fires.
I
Very
directed
similar.
2.5 hours straight with no commercial breaks.
Now
The
here's
Friday after they started.
Here's what I wanted to ask you, being from living in the LA area. I never had the privilege of driving through Pacific Palisades, right, as a community, and to know it. Were you familiar with that community? Had you been through there? Or
I've been
Altadena?
to Altadena. I've been to
Altadena.
Altadena, yeah. I went to an event at one of the golf courses there, and my friend that I went with, my coworker, she told me later, she said, that golf course isn't there anymore. That whole building that we were in,
Yeah.
she said it's gone.
So that's got to be surreal that you were
That is
actually
weird.
there and just, okay, it's all gone. And to lose a whole community like that, from the schools to the recreation centers to the government buildings to the stores, and now my entire community is gone. I can't imagine what that was like. And here's the other part that I always think about when I think about your guys' job and having to tell the story. The level of sensitivity, how do you deliver this in a way that doesn't just feel insensitive? Because the media gets a really bad rap, especially in the last 10 years. We blame you guys for everything. Right? It's the media. Like, well, okay. Lately, I've been more defensive. So who exactly are we talking about? Like, what has the media done? Well, they're telling a different story, or they're, And to me, that's a very blanket statement, because there are millions of media outlets. To say the media, right, put us all under this blanket and say, okay, everybody's being misleading or being paid off and only covering what they want to cover, I think it's an unfair statement to make. And so Jim has even told me of several instances where he's been on site of some sort of crime or something, and whoever he's trying to talk to about the story is, somewhat defensive. Like, hey, no, you guys are just here for a story. Get out of here. We're not here ready to talk. So as a producer, I want to know what was your mindset going into some of these more sensitive stories? I mean, do you coach up your reporters and say, hey guys, let's show some empathy, or how does that work?
That's a content thing.
Yeah.
So I'm taking what I'm a director, so the producers are putting the show together, and I'll do things like I want to make sure that the video I'm showing of the situation is the correct video, because we had Palisades fires, we had Altadena fire, we had the Easton fire, we had the Hughes fire, we had all these different
All
fires
at the same time.
Yeah, so you want to make sure your video matches, because sometimes someone who doesn't have as much experience is just like, just get the fire on, but it needs to be the right area, because if you show crazy fire and say it's somewhere else, people are going to think, oh my gosh, my community is on fire, when that one isn't.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. And that was something that I was already aware of when I was at Fresno State, because my professors were awesome. You couldn't just put blanket video over a story. I got marked off because I had the wrong horse for this horse story we were doing. And I was like, oh, okay, it matters.
It matters.
And so I brought that from Fresno State. So
Wow.
I don't want to show the video that isn't. I mean, it could be as simple as make sure you have the right teams for the sport that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I've seen other channels show the Astros instead of the Giants. That
That's a big.
even though I don't like either of them,
Yeah.
just because they're both orange doesn't mean that that's the right video.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that it's correct.
The details.
So for me,
matter.
I want to make sure everything's spelled right, that it's the correct video. It's that I always want the anchor to feel comfortable with me in the chair because I want to protect them. They're the face that everybody sees. So if there's an error, they're looking at that face. And I want their face to look good.
Yeah.
So I want it to be correct.
It's the level of trust that has to happen there, right?
Yeah.
And you're noticing her one part of the whole package. It's like I know she has the final say of what she wants to see, what she wants to air, what she wants written. What I loved about back then was I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember she's yelling at us. Like she could be screaming, "I need to see your picture now. We're going on air now." And you're like,
Did
"Oh
you,
my
did
gosh!"
you yell at James?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure all
Blanket.
sometimes. But the beauty of it is when we're done and we sit back and you're like, "Oh, that was a bitchin' show. That we got everything we needed and we nailed it." And so then we go out for drinks. We all have a
So
celebrate.
it's never personal.
No,
it's just
never.
No,
about-
we're
never.
doing the job. We want it to look good.
Yeah, because you have who's your competitor? The other guy down the road.
Yeah.
The other
And
station.
I know
Yep.
your video looks good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get it over to us. Turn it on.
Yeah,
Let's go.
What? No, and
I
she's
see
saying,
Jen right
she's
now
saying,
going into that mode.
but she's saying that in a way to where it's like I've seen it. I could see it up on my screen.
Yeah.
Zoom in and show me more, whatever it is, and I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, I need to show this or whatever. Yeah, so it's visual, because if someone, I always say this to my kids too. If you mute it and you could still tell the story by the visual appearance, you've done your job.
It's a great
as
test.
a photojournalist.
Yeah.
Right. So then, therefore, and what pisses us off, take it now. You know. So then you get mad, like you haven't taken it. I'm looking at a monitor. Yeah. So it goes both ways to some degree. You're like, oh shit, now you missed it.
like a family.
You know?
You're fighting to get the
Yeah.
best on the air.
Yeah.
But it's an unspoken understanding that all the fighting is
For the
together
show.
for the
It's for
for the
the show,
team.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah,
tell the
totally.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, not to bring it up, then you
Yeah.
win an Emmy for a great show. You know. And it's like, hey, we got an awesome
Yeah.
show. So
Yes.
So
Yep.
So, Mark, what was your role in all of this?
Earlier, I think at this point, I think we told you we've produced a couple of shows, and they derive from my experience working in journalism, but they're talking generally about climate change issues, energy. The first show that we did was about green building.
And
The
this-
second show was about
These are he loves this topic. It's
Green building. Okay,
it's
so
really important to him.
James tried to kind of explain it to me. Can you give us a clearer picture of what green building is?
I would just say energy efficient building. So we built homes that would, just for example, the first house we made that's where I was living when she called me when the World Trade Centers got hit, was in 2001. And it was built in such a way that the solar panels on the roof made more power over the course of a year than the whole building used. So the cost for our PG&E bill in the first year was $60 for the whole year.
I'm all ears.
That's green building.
How do I?
That's what I mean by
Sign
green
me
building.
up.
I
Like-
mean, it's the money. Yeah.
Wow.
It's partly the money, but it's really just it's just efficiency.
Yeah.
If you can build a house that doesn't use a lot of power to cool it off,
Yeah.
which that's what we need here, right? Mostly.
Yeah.
Or in Canada or some colder place, then you build a house that can retain the heat.
Yes.
Well, that turns out to be the same thing. So super insulated walls, super insulated roof, very energy efficient windows and appliances and all that. And then now commonly we have solar panels. Lots of people have that now. Well, not very many people did 25 years ago when we built our first house. So that's what we did. That I didn't even know at that time. That was when I was working at Channel 47 when we first started this idea. I didn't know what climate change was. Truthfully, I did not know.
Wow.
This would have been in 1999.
How'd you get involved in?
So we did this show and interviewed a lot of people about energy efficiency and stuff like that. And my friend Phil, who I'd gone to college with, turned out to be a very good resource.
Yeah, he's an
He
expert.
knew a lot about climate change, and I just asked him, "What the hell is this?"
Wow.
And he told me, and I go, "Well, then." My answer to that was, "Why are we talking about anything else?"
Great question.
That was in 2000 and when did we do that show? 2003, I think.
Yeah.
So for our viewers, the typical home, we use the insulate, the fluffy, itchy stuff. What's it?
It's either
Insulation.
fiberglass or
But yeah.
mostly. Yeah.
These homes use.
So the ones that we started with are, and I still do, is called Insulated Concrete Forms, which looks like a giant Lego block.
Made of,
It's a very good description because that's what it looks like.
Like a Lego.
Looks
What's
like
it made
styrofoam.
of? Oh, styrofoam.
Styrofoam.
It's actually expanded polystyrene, so it's more like a one of your white cups.
Oh, okay.
Technically, styrofoam is a closed cell type of insulation, and this is the little beads.
The little beads, yeah.
The same thing as in an igloo chest. Same thing.
Okay.
So they make forms out of that are held together with like a plastic webbing. You put steel rebar on the inside of it, pour the concrete on the inside of it, and the whole sandwich is the wall.
Wow.
So the building form is the insulation, and it stays there. So
It doesn't move over time, and
it doesn't. Nothing changes. You put all whatever coating you want, just like any other building. So stucco mostly is what we did.
Yeah.
But you could use metal siding or whatever kind of siding you want. Drywall on the inside, whatever siding you want on the outside. It's the idea of efficiency first, I guess.
It's great. So here's a question that always comes up when somebody brings in a new form of building or construction: durability. Do these last like the average home? Are they easier to tumble or earthquake?
You know what you said before? Well, maybe it was in the previous interview when you talked about how fashion is somewhere else first.
Yes.
And then it comes to us.
Yeah.
They've been doing ICF in Germany and in Canada for 50 years.
Oh, we're that far behind.
We're not.
We're not?
We've been doing it for 25 years.
So
the
if I wanted to look at a home, does it look like any other home, or can I tell that this is a greenhouse?
I don't
If
think
you know
could
what
tell.
to look for, it looks a little different. But basically, if you drive by, you wouldn't know.
Big fat walls. So it looks maybe like an adobe house.
Is the cost the same as?
I would say we're close to parity. In Canada, where they build way more of these, they really know how to do it. And they're telling me they can build an ICF house with far superior building characteristics than they could to try to make a wood-framed house of the to the same efficiency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'd have to add so much insulation to a wood-frame house, and it would still burn down. So part of the issue here is that yes, it's more expensive, not that much more, maybe 10%,
And you end up
if
getting
you
that
don't-
savings, right?
you almost immediately you're having savings. Yeah,
Now, do we have some here in the valley?
lots.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how to answer that question. Why is it that we don't know?
Yeah.
Lots of people have never. What is that?
yeah.
Only in the building industry. My answer to that is I think we know more and more about less and less. That's a quote from somebody I stole it from. And by that I mean we look at what our experience is. So we look at the stuff that's important to us.
Yes.
And so most people are not that much into construction. They're not going to go around looking at, look at that type of building. Some people will,
Yeah.
but not that many.
Well, I am now.
Yeah, good.
I'm all in. Wow. Now, do you currently live in a home that's?
No, I live in a house from 1954.
Oh, that's.
I'm ready to build my own ICF house.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this beautiful shiny object in front of me. Very intimidating, by the way. Let's talk about this Emmy. How did this come to be?
It's from the most amazing production crew that puts the Dodgers studio shows on the air.
The Dodgers. You guys get that? LA Dodger fans.
Yeah.
Let's hear it. So what's the name of the show?
There's two shows, but mostly it's Access SportsNet Dodgers.
Okay, Access SportsNet Dodgers. And if I'm in the LA area, I see this on
Spectrum.
Spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so you have the pregame and postgame show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How did you get involved in this program?
When the channel was getting ready to launch and they were hiring the crew, my first sports anchor I worked with is really good friends with the director that had been hired, and they were looking for another director, and they had a lot of people set in the crew, and they said, well, let's get a female director. And so our mutual friend sent me a message on Facebook saying, hey, the Dodgers are hiring a director. What do you think?
What was your first thought?
I could go home because
You
I
were
was living in New York.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was in New
okay.
York and I was miserable. I really did not like living in New York. I was just
Was
miserable.
it the weather, the people?
Everything.
Or?
Everything. I'm not going
Everything.
to go on a tirade about it, but the people were great.
Yes.
I'm still friends with some of my coworkers from back then. But I applied for the job and I went through 8 phone interviews, and then I got it.
Oh my, that's a long process.
It's a long process, and I got to come home. And what I was telling you before when we sat down, for some reason, I started the buzzword manifesting. For some reason, I started watching all these baseball movies and like Field of Dreams and like all the Natural. I love The Natural.
Yeah.
And I was just watching all not
That's the
for
Robert
any.
Redford one,
Mhm.
the wood bat.
Do-do-do,
Yeah.
do-do-do.
Well,
So-
she's got the song down.
Because it's awesome. So for some reason, I was just watching those, not to try and like, I want to work for baseball. It was just something that was in the back of my mind, and I just kept watching them. And then here comes this message: the Dodgers are hiring, and I
Wow.
wanted it so badly.
Oh,
but
so
I
you
just
were
couldn't
watching
think
these
about
movies
it.
long before the
Just like-
opportunity.
A couple months before. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then it just came up, and it was interesting because one of the interviews I had was with, I think, the GM. I don't remember. There were so many people. And I said, look, I just moved to New York. I've only been here 2 years. I had to learn all new politicians, but they all dress the same too, but they don't have their names on their backs. So if I can learn politicians in a new city, I can learn your baseball players. And I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
but hire the person that is the right person for the job. And like they really responded to that I compared it to a whole bunch of politicians
Yeah.
all dressed the same. And so then I got the job and I got to come home. I got to come back to California, and it was the greatest thing.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah,
we're
thank
very
you.
glad you're
Thank
here.
you. I love it. This is a great job.
A Giants fan.
Giants fan.
Giants fan.
But I love the story.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm a Giants fan as well, and that's been ongoing
sore spot?
topic for. Yeah. No, I've learned. I guess I would say
You're a
because
baseball fan.
I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah,
absolutely,
I would
I'm
say
a baseball
that's more
fan.
accurate.
Yeah.
It was
But
a great
it-
series. It's a great series.
I
Great
got to
series.
participate in a number of things with the Dodgers because of her
Yeah.
that
Wow.
were,
Yeah.
priceless.
I will say
mean,
this about the-
unbelievable.
This is what I'll say about the Dodgers. I've gone to games at, well, is it called Pac Bell Park anymore? We changed the name already. The Giants.
The
Giants.
Giants one.
They've changed the name a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then I've gone to Dodger Stadium, and I remember going to Dodger Stadium with my wife, and they have this thing called what's it called, the dugout plan or something like that. And my brother had a title company who was trying to earn our business. He goes, "Hey, they gave me these tickets. I can't go." I said, "I'm going to go, please." And we go to the game, and this is how they do it at the Dodger Stadium. I don't know if there's any more, but this is about 10 years ago. You get your ticket, and there's like this buffet area, and the guy there shaking hands. I'm like, I know this face. Who are these eyes? I know these eyes. It was Steve Garvey,
Hey.
and he's like shaking.
How
I
about
go,
that?
"Man,
He's
Dodgers
been in our
do it-
studio.
They do it right.
Yeah, he was one of our analysts.
And see, I didn't know anything about the Dodger culture, and then I said, "Oh well, can I get a hot dog?" They're like, "Do you want a hot dog or a Dodger,
Dodger
dog?"
dog.
I'm like,
dog.
"What's a Dodger dog?"
Oh.
And they came out with this.
2 foot long.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable eating this. This is
That'll be
overwhelming.
$34.95,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. And again, with the dugout thing, it's all you can eat, right? So we're like, "Oh, give us the Cracker Jacks." But it was an amazing experience there, and a lot of history there. And when you got to the organization, did you feel this sense of like, okay, I'm part of something that means a lot to people and it has a lot of tradition behind it? Or was it like, I got a job?
I was really excited because everybody's heard of the Dodgers, and I'd been doing news for 20 years. And so I got to do something different that was still live broadcasting, which is what I love.
Yes.
And so I work for Spectrum, and I work for the channel that is the Dodgers channel. So I walked into this nondescript building in this huge newsroom, which was really cool. And all these people that I worked with talk baseball nonstop all day long. And they just never get enough, and they remember dates, and it's just been really cool because I didn't really grow up with that.
Yeah.
And so when I knew that it was a big deal, and it was a big deal, was when I'd been working for them for about 2 weeks, and we were maybe a week and a half from launching the channel. And I walked into work, and all these guys I work with were just like, and I'm like, what is going on? So I'm like, okay, what's happening? And we go, this guy's going to come talk to us. I'll say his name in a second. And I'm like, I don't know this name. But I went down the hall and I heard a voice. And it was a voice from a movie. And I was like, oh, that's the voice from what movie is it? Oh my gosh. Okay, so it was Vince Scully.
Vince Scully.
But I heard his voice first
The
because
legendary-
he voiced that. Oh my God, I'm drawing it a blank.
He's
For
the
Love
voice
of the Game.
Voice of the
For Love of the
Dodgers,
Game.
right?
Yes. Yes. And
Wow.
I didn't know all these things.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I know his voice from that. And I saw him and I was like, oh, okay, everyone is going bananas. So I have to remember because I will know who this is soon. I don't right now.
Yeah.
So he gave this big speech about starting when baseball at the beginning, basically, and learning how to communicate with the fans through transistor radios. And he told all these stories, and it was incredible. And even though I didn't know who he was, it was still an amazing moment.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this is big.
This is
And
big.
then I learned who he was.
Wow.
And he came in and he talked to us
So living-
because he knew how important TV was going to be for what we were doing for the team. And it was amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool.
It's very cool.
This is cool.
And so along the way, I'm sure you've met many Dodger legends.
I work with some amazing.
She works with
Veteran.
Oral Hershiser.
Oral Hershey.
They're good friends.
Okay, yeah. Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Nomar
yeah.
Garciaparra. Yeah.
All those guys.
Uh-huh.
Nomar.
Jerry Hurston Jr. Yeah. Ned Coletti.
Nomar even had a SNL skit dedicated
I've
to him.
seen that with Kate Hudson. Yeah. I saw that later. I was
That's
like,
his-
oh.
And when you think about baseball, and I'm sorry I'm going to offend some people right now, but there are some organizations that are just naturally more popular than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the Dodgers in the same categories like the New York Yankees, right? Love them or hate them. Everybody knows them. The Dodgers. I'm a little biased, but I'd say the Giants are in that group. The Red Sox, right? There's a couple of elite organizations that are not just known regionally, but throughout, the country and the world. And Dodgers are one of them. And so
Yeah.
that's a really cool experience. And so
It
now
is.
you're the director,
Yeah, I'm one of them.
and they're like, okay, here's your first show. Go at it.
I trained because we hadn't launched our channel yet. I trained with the Lakers because they were already established. I think they'd been on the air at least
She does
a
the
year or
Lakers
two.
too.
I work on the Lakers studio
She's like,
shows.
here's just two major historical franchises.
know.
I'm with
And
both of them.
they're in-
do both.
They're in the same building. That's all.
Wow.
Big
And
game,
so-
James Worthy. Walks by all the time. I say hi to
Really?
him. Yeah.
So how does it work when these teams go to championships? Like you
it's
guys.
the same. Every day's the same. We're in the control room.
Okay, and now here's a misconception that many people have that James had told me about. He says, I thought she was at the field.
Yeah, a lot
I
of
was
people think
bummed
that.
out. I was like, I want to see my friend. Where you at?
Yeah,
I'm at the game.
I'm across
I'm in El
town.
Segundo.
I'm next to LAX. That's
Wow.
where our studios are.
So I want to know if you know about this because there's this documentary that came out, I want to say about 5 years ago on Netflix. It blew my mind. It's called The Long Shot. Did you hear about that? So check this out, Jim. There's this guy, and he went to a Dodgers game, and he with his daughter, and he comes home. It's just a regular night. He gets home, and the SWAT team's waiting for him. They have him at gunpoint, immediately arrest him, throw him in the paddy wagon. You are under the arrest for murder. Some girl had pointed him out as having shot her friend in kind of a sort of a gang-related incident that happened that night. And his lawyer's like, hey, dude, it just looks really bad for you. You're going to go down. He's like, I promise you I didn't do this. He's like, do you have anything what's your alibi? I was at a Dodgers game.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen it.
So she said, I was at a Dodgers game. He's like, can you prove it? He's like, no. And so his lawyer starts to think outside the box. And this is where you guys come in. Says, you know what? Is there anything you can remember about the Dodgers game? So they check the footage of that night, and there's no shots showing this guy there. But then they take a step further and say, you know what? I feel like there was a show recording that night. And so Curb Your Enthusiasm was actually filming an episode at a Dodgers game.
Oh, no kidding.
And yes, and so they said, can we get that footage? And so he's in court. He's been sitting in jail for 8 months. He's about to go get life for this murder. And there's a, what is it called? The extra stuff that you don't use? B-roll or what?
Mm-hmm.
No.
There's a word for it.
Yeah, that's it.
B-roll. And there's this shot that wasn't used, and it's what's his name? The Curb Your Enthusiasm guy?
David.
Larry David is there, and he's dialogue, and right behind him is this guy with his daughter, and they're eating popcorn. Saves his life.
Wow.
Is it on Netflix or Amazon?
Netflix, and it all took place Dodger Stadium, and I'm sure the control room. Did they talk about this story? I mean, did it come up?
No, they talk about a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
No, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good documentary.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So does the building have like Dodger logo and memorabilia? And
Yeah, in our control room we have all kinds of logos and stuff on the walls. And our coordinating producer, Stu, he has taken moments from the 11 years we've been on the air and made this collage that's so incredible of all these pictures of all these events from Dodger games and situations, and he's put them all over the windows of our control room.
Wow.
So there's all these control rooms, and just ours is covered in Dodgers pictures everywhere, and it's so amazing. It's really incredible. So yeah, that's our spot.
And so, okay, so this is where I want to go with this next. So you have your regular season, and you guys make a run in the playoffs. At some point, there's a conversation like, we might go to the World Series. In preparation for that, what is different about a World Series pregame show versus a regular season show?
We treat every day the same. It's every day like this is the best show there is what we're going to do. So we prep everything
The same.
with the same 100%.
Hence the Emmy. There it is.
Yeah, like this is for our group. We have 5 of them.
5?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is because our show won this Emmy, and our crew is incredible. Like they edit fast. They know where things are. They remember dates. They're amazing. The producers are fantastic. It's oh my gosh. He's been able to watch some shows during the World Series. He got to come visit.
Oh,
and
Mark, you were in there?
we're all talking at once, and it's the best parts when it's a playoff game, when the show is on the air and we're all communicating because we've been doing it for so long. It's all shorthand, and it's amazing. It's my favorite part is when we get to go to playoffs and do those games because it's just so much energy.
So as a director, you're calling the scenes that are, or the camera
Yeah, you're
angles,
calling
or
when you're going to go to different cameras, when you're going to go to
camera
videotape.
1, camera 2.
How many tape
Yeah.
machines do you have?
It's a server. It's all digital.
Like 100?
Clips? Video clips?
Like if you're saying
We have the entire library. So maybe you can't get it during the show, but you can think about something for the next day's show, and you can go get it and pull it out of the library, out of the archive. But
Okay.
there's a lot of good people who edit quickly and very well. It's amazing.
Are the cameras robotic now? Are they?
We have a jib cam.
Jib?
Each studio has a jib. Oh, our jib people are so good.
A jib is a camera.
It's on a big
remote
arm.
control.
No, he's got this big arm and the camera's on one end, and then he's got controls, and he's just flying it around in the studio and doing these incredible shots.
Is he in a separate room?
No, he's just standing there.
He's right
in
there.
the studio.
Oh, in the
Standing there.
studio.
He's got a machine that moves on an arm, moves
It's-
the camera.
There's
around.
dials and
So it looks like a movie.
Wow.
It does. It looks like a movie. It's incredible. And then the other 3 cameras are robotic. And so then somebody's in a separate room with all those little things, but the jib guy is right there, flying, operating, and it's.
What would you say was the most, and it's going to just be all 3 of you, I'm going to ask this, the most stressful episode or show or project you had to do where everything was happening and going in the wrong direction, you found a way to save it?
It's probably when there's equipment failure.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to speak for you because I know I'm going to say the story that we all
Are you going to
know.
tell the
Oh,
story?
you guys were all
Are you
involved?
gonna
No,
tell
no,
the story?
I'm going to tell.
Go there.
You want me to tell him?
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say, though,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. I can tell it from my perspective.
Okay. You were there, so go
I-
ahead. Yeah, I came
Is
late.
this the mast?
No, it's the dude that had the heart attack in the middle of your show. What? That's the one I've always
Wait,
envied you
what?
on that one. Yeah, she had to take over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was
I'll never.
my
ugh.
it was
Yeah.
my first year.
Were you there?
Yeah, I came late after when. Yeah, go ahead.
It
go ahead.
was because that's how I became a director. So
You were thrown into almost.
sort of, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd been there a year. Was about 10 months into my first year, and it was 95, so I was 21, maybe something like that. And on the weekend, we had the same director all the time, and he keeled over in the control room
Oh,
two
the
hours
director.
before showtime. And on the weekends, it's
This
just
is at-
kids.
I was thinking someone
This
on
is at
camera.
Channel
No, it was at
47.
Channel 47. It was
This
the
is the
director.
beginning of her career.
Yeah.
Is
So
how she started.
he collapsed.
And you stepped in.
I was in master control at the time. I was putting whatever the programming was on the air, and here comes the girl who was the technical director. So the director calls all the shots, and the technical director pushes all the buttons and does everything. So she comes running in, and she's like, "Dave just collapsed." And I'm like, "Is somebody calling 911?" And so somebody was calling, and
Everyone knew Dave?
yeah, Dave,
Yeah.
Dave. And so it was a skeleton crew because we were just getting ready for the weekend show, and that's when all the police radios with all of that, like John Wallace had his, he heard an ambulance get dispatched to our building, and he called, and a lot of people heard that and called and came in, and we called our bosses. And what happened is right then, the only adult, because the only person who was over like 25 happened to come in, the guy who was in charge of the cameras came in, and he started doing CPR on Dave. And the ambulance came, and they took him away, and one of the other directors came in and did the show and did the weekend, and we were all freaked out because we loved this guy, and he passed away that night.
Wow.
And so everybody was chipping in, and I had already started training myself on we had 3 shows. We had a noon, a 6, and 11. And any show that I wasn't already working, I was training myself to direct because I was like, I can do this. I can direct. I would hear it and I'd be like, I can do that. And so then they hired somebody, and he was awful. And I was helping. I was in the studio being a floor director. And when he'd give the 10 count, I would do the 10 count because he didn't count right. And so I would do the 10 count for the anchors, and I would communicate stuff. And so I was helping him because he was just not good. What's that?
What's a 10 count?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When there's a sound bite coming, and you want the anchor to stop doing the read at the exact moment,
Oh.
they stop reading, and then the sound comes up, and it's very cool.
So you're counting it off for them to know when
Counting
to
it down.
pause. And what was he
his-
doing wrong?
He would 10,
He wasn't.
9, 8. Like, I don't know what he was doing. Was he planting corn? Like, so then I would do it, and because it sounds
she's
terrible,
a
but he was not
perfectionist,
not good.
He wasn't ready.
So I was doing it, and
9.5.
so he wasn't working out. He wasn't doing it right. And so then they said, Jen, we're going to give you a shot at this. And it wasn't quite a year. It was like 11 months into my career.
And you were ready,
I was ready, and I was so nervous, and
but you wanted it.
I wanted it, and it was my job.
What was your story? I gave you that story, but what
Yeah.
was your craziest moment?
When the mast got ripped off.
Stop it. I knew you were going to say that.
The
All
mast?
right.
That's
They know this story. You know when I crashed. Were you telling me to do that, or was it
Oh, the van?
No, I was just wanting you to get your shot up, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's down.
yeah.
mast
I
just ripped off of the truck.
Jim's avoiding the story.
No,
It was terrible
It was
because
horrible. I should have died.
Yeah,
Wait,
I was
what?
just gonna
I
say
shoulda
you should have
died, yeah,
died
I shoulda
because when a
died.
I didn't know it
mast
was life or
touches, was it a wire? Was it a wire that he hit?
It was a telephone pole. It was the lines that
There's-
came across.
He
There's a live
raised the
wire.
Yeah.
Well,
On
you know
top
how
of the
those
van?
work.
You
The
can't
microwave
drive
mast?
with
So
that up.
it's a mast.
It-
It's a
it
mast
goes
that
up.
goes up.
It
So
goes
they
up.
sent me to Huron. So here's the thing. Armenian guy.
Georgian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So
Yeah,
Shadurgian.
yeah,
No,
so
thank
he
you.
was- he
Starts
was-
with a T.
I
he
can
was a
see it
producer.
spelling in my head. Okay.
So he was a producer. It was on a weekend. They sent me out. I had maybe 3 hours of training on a live truck.
Yeah.
So I wasn't signed off. And
That's
so
more than I got.
yeah, well,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so
I
but
feel
I
like
crashed.
you all just
so
got thrown in.
so
Every story is like they just threw me in there.
well, and they made us who we are now, right? If
Yeah.
you-
Yeah.
before-
Yeah.
Figure it out.
So they sent me to Huron because it was a shooting or something over there. So I raced down there by myself. I go down there. They said, get down there and set up the mast, set up a shot, and we're just going to go live. No reporter. So I get there. I set up the shot. Mast goes up in the air. Was it 50, 40 feet, something like that?
I don't think it was 50, but it was very tall.
Yeah, it's
Up
it's
there.
At least
tall.
35.
So I get up there and I raise the mast, and you have the pointed dish to get line of sight with the mountain up above on your
So
way
it's
to above 4 lanes.
Microwave transmitter. Yeah.
So it's a line of sight. So we couldn't get a good signal. So somebody, it wasn't her, but it was someone like, I think it was Paul. He's like, we
been.
need to move your truck and get a better signal. Well, you flip the switch in the back that lowers the air pressure to let the mast come down. Well, it comes down gradually as air leaves the mast. Well, I jumped in the truck because panic. We're about ready to go live in the 11 o'clock
and
show.
you thought it was down already.
I put it in drive, and I drove probably another, 100 yards, and it was still tall enough. It hit the power lines connecting to the power poles. It lifted the whole front of the truck up. It broke the mast off the ground. Sparks fell on the hood of my truck. I didn't know what was going on, and I jumped out.
Yeah. You should have
you're not supposed to do.
died.
We
You
should have.
cannot-
We didn't have the training. I didn't know the training. We did later. We did. We
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the
yeah,
training
yeah.
later.
knew.
You
Mark
cannot
knew.
do that.
So the
That's-
rubber on your tires are supposed to insulate any electricity from the mast
So
to
stay
the
in.
ground. You're supposed to stay in. Yeah. Period. And so I jumped. I jumped out.
How did you survive?
Luck, 100% luck. So I get out. The mast is bent and almost broken off the truck. Then finally, I drive forward enough to get it away from the power lines that had broken off onto the ground. And I moved forward, and it fell, and it completely snapped off the truck. And so by then, the police department that were there helped me condense it left, and I pushed it in the back of Unit 4 or whatever, stuck it in the back, and then I used extension cords to tie the 2 double doors in the back, and with a mast sticking out the back. And I drove all the way home. Well, they're yelling. So everyone's yelling at me, like, where's the shot?
Yeah,
Where's the
where's the
shot?
shot?
And I was just like, I'm done. I
yeah.
was still
on
a
the
rookie.
2A, you said it's
down.
down.
It's down. Everything's
I
down.
ripped the mast
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
And
Now, was your assumption that your career's over?
Oh,
or-
done.
Oh, yeah.
Done. Yeah, I was scared to
Yeah,
death.
he's
I was
like
driving-
he came
it was a
into the
long
control
drive
room.
home.
He got back. And we were done with the show. I was in the control room. He came and he sat down. He's like, "I'm so fired. I'm so over."
I'm done. It was like everything flashed before me. Not even thinking I could have died. Never at all.
The job was
Until
Found that out
later,
later.
when the stupid Dan. Well, so then I went back and I had to talk with the drillings in the back and talk to them, and I think, and I'm just saying, I'm speculating, but there could have been a lawsuit because I didn't have any experience or training, and they sent me to something like that. And then
With that
all of
machine.
a sudden, these training meetings came out, and we were all mandatory to go to these seminars or whatever we went to, watch these videos, take these tests, and that's what started that whole thing.
Somewhere in the manuals, there's a James Chance law.
Yeah.
Right? Somewhere. Well, and so I heard later on from some friends of mine that I've told the story to, was like, you could have sued easily and they probably knew it, and they probably said, we better get a training session.
So what was the
going.
conversation? Oh, you're fine.
No,
Or what'd they say?
he suspended me for a day with pay,
Yeah.
but then I was back on the job.
Were you confused by that?
I was just happy I still had a job. I didn't care. It was my first job. It was
So
my
no
first TV
questions.
job.
You're just like,
No.
all right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
There's no show without you.
But
So-
it's interesting. I have another side story connected to that. But how much so we have mass emails. So there would be it would be like we have at school.
Yeah.
We have at school, right? So you would send it to the school, and with us it was CBS. And I remember one time, I think you were gone by then. My car got keyed, my truck.
Yeah.
I was pissed. I was livid. And so I sent out a mass email saying, it's unfortunate that we have, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. We don't have a security gate that closes and opens and blah, blah, blah. And I just, anyways. So I get a call from my general manager to come in. This is when Jim Holland was the news director at 47. And so they called me in, and she basically was telling me, you realize your email went to Katie Couric. And I was like, what? And she goes,
Wait.
you hit all CBS. And it
Katie
went
Couric.
national to all of them about your problem with your truck. And I was still pissed. I was like, well, what are we going to do about it? Because I'm sorry. But, I mean, she was more mad that it went to everybody
Yeah.
instead of our building.
Aired out the dirty laundry.
The funny thing is, someone hit her mirror on her Jaguar and broke the mirror. About a month later, we had a security door.
Oh,
And I was like,
Wow.
yeah.
Did she chime in? That's right, James.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. If it wasn't for you, no, not at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
oh my God.
So I was just, then later on, I'm like, impressed. Like, oh, Katie Couric read by the email?
So speaking of the celebrities, right? Without sharing too much, who has been your most pleasant experience?
Oh,
for all
she's
three of
working
you?
with them right now. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, I work with amazing people.
Do you have a favorite? Oral Hershiser?
Oral Hershiser. He's
Yes.
awesome, but I love them all. They're all
He was. Is he
fantastic guys.
left-handed? He's right-handed pitcher, right? Won a World Series in the 80s, I want to say.
88.
88. Does he talk much about the baseball days?
Oh yeah, all the time.
That's what he talks about.
Yeah. Now he talks through all the games. He's one of the announcers for the
Very
games now.
cool.
He was in our studio every day for years, and then after Vin retired, he and Joe Davis call the games.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, Mark, is there any particular?
Two gentlemen you might remember. I'm not. He was saying earlier about we were in the same age bracket. No, we're not. I'm way older. I got to work with Dan Rather.
Dan
which-
Rather, yes.
which was really quite an experience. And Mike Wallace actually came to the station. I don't know if you remember that. Was that you? Okay.
Dan Rather, Mike Wallace. Those are some big names.
Well, CBS. We were CBS
Yeah.
affiliate. And so that was, I got to go to Washington and interview on my own. I interviewed, statesmen, senators, that kind of stuff. Not that was, it was more of an experience than people that I met.
Yeah, just going to Washington, D.C. and
We did, there's a show, I think it's still going, 48 Hours. Is that still on there?
48 hours.
Well, the beginning part of that, when that first, it was first on, but I got to work for 48 hours.
I love that show.
It's not like the same as it is now, but similar, kind of. And my experience there, I don't remember the guy's name. It was like what she's saying. And when you get to work with super professionals, people that are really good at what they are doing,
Yeah.
it is really inspirational. It
To see
is
them at work.
It is a hard thing to describe. Not that I really enjoyed working at 47, but getting to work with people that were top-notch CBS people was, that was really cool.
What would you say is one of their distinguishing traits that you go, wow, this is another level?
Ease.
Oh, okay.
They knew what they were doing. I'm sure she would say the same thing. There's, when you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
you don't get so nervous. You don't worry about it. You do your job. Yeah, when you're good at what you're doing.
You make it look easy, right?
Just comfortable, easy. They just, the story we were working on was an awful story. We did plenty of those. It was the one where the girl got murdered in Hanford. You might remember that.
Oh.
She was put in a kiln or something like that.
Wow.
This would have been 96. 95, 96.
I don't remember that story, but it sounds terrible.
Anyway, terrible story. So again, national, level, and I was just one of the people that was sort of in the right place at the right time, I guess. I was a cameraman, and they said, we need you to go down there. And so I got to work with them. I was their cameraman for a day or two.
Wow.
On that story.
How about you, Jim?
There's many. I've seen so many people I've interviewed. Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, no, I haven't did that one. Who's that? I don't even know who that is.
She's from Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, no, she was one of my worst. Yeah, I couldn't stand her.
Who was your favorite?
Mariano Rivera. I remember calling Jen, telling
really?
her that he came up to Sierra High School and hung out
The
with us for
Yankee.
like 3 hours. Yeah.
The greatest pitcher ever.
Yeah, and I think one of the fondest memories, not related to the media, was having dinner with Dwayne Johnson for about 3 hours.
You
Yep.
did tell me
Yep.
that.
So just showing up at it's a long story, but I was living in Bakersfield, and he happened to be wrestling as a Rock in Bakersfield, and he, a friend of mine that I was actually seeing at the time, her brother went to high school with him, so he showed up the day before and hung out and knocked on the door, and
That's cool.
there he is.
He made the best movie ever.
Which one?
San Andreas, best movie ever.
San Andreas. Oh my God!
but-
Yeah, you can't win them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we earlier referenced this idea that someone might be watching this who's maybe inspired to want to get into the media. What would be your best advice for someone? We'll start with Jen. For someone who's trying to get in, a young buck who's
For me, it was going to school. That was great.
yes,
I had a really good experience, education. I started at UCSD. That was awesome. Ended up at Fresno State. It was great. You meet people who I'm still friends with. You learn so much, and then you carry that with you to whatever job you get a chance to do. And it was amazing. That was a great start for me to go to school.
stay in school, kids.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, Mark? Best advice for someone trying to get into business?
That's a tough question for me. I think it's probably the same advice I would give for anybody trying to get into any business, but it sounds funny, but be in the right place at the right time. It had a lot to do with just, I don't know if it's so much luck, but and I'm sure it's different now, trying to get a job in the media. Open-mindedness, maybe.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Yes.
And you kind of said that earlier. When they sent me out and I didn't know how to use the camera, I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't bother me.
Didn't shy away from it at all.
I liked it.
Fearless.
That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I find that a very common response when you're in a new situation or where you're out of your comfort zone is to kind of just remove yourself and say, oh, I'm not ready. And you guys both have this quality where well, I'm not ready, but I'm still not.
I'm going
anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very admirable trait that takes a lot of courage. James, the question was, what advice would you give to someone who may be considering a job in the media, behind the scenes?
I've talked to kids about this because they're like, oh, how do I get into it? Not necessarily what we did, but I always tell them you got to have thick skin. You got to be able to be critiqued in a manner to where you're not going to like it and be told that your stuff is not good enough, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, because I was told years ago to get out of the business. My stuff wasn't good. And,
Ouch.
Yeah. And here I am today. 27 years television and now 11 years teaching it. So it's kind of like it didn't stop me. So if anybody tells you don't want to do it, keep pushing on. So
Have thick skin and just kind of take that feedback and grow from that. Right?
Yeah. I think in television you do, because you don't know, what I was saying before is you don't know how the show's going to turn out. The story you were on, you probably realize you could have done it better. Like, I could have probably pushed a little harder, got that interview, whatever it was. So it just pushes you better to better yourself and the story you're going to do next time. And so I just tell that to my kids all the time. So
Wow. So yeah, Mark, Jen, James, I want to thank you guys very much for coming on and sharing everything that you did. I'm going to share this with my students because I feel like there's a lot here to be learned about just getting out of your comfort zone, adapting to the situation at hand, and being a professional. So I'm very grateful for you guys being here today. With that being said, if you liked what we had to offer today, please like and subscribe. Check out RobLive and all the wonderful work that Jim does behind the scenes for us. And pretty soon here, Jim, we're going to get some merch, right? Get some
I hope
shirts
so.
out.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
I want to send some for all the guests who
Yay.
come out.
I love
Right.
that.
Yeah, maybe we'll see one in a Dodgers control room at some
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Get one to Oral Hershiser.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, I want to thank you guys once again for being here.
Thank you.
And as always, guys, check us out. And we're going to put some links in there to some of the work that Mark and Jen have done in the past, as well as Jim. And hopefully be inspired by that. Be prepared, get out there, be adaptable, and be willing to learn. Get out of that comfort zone. Right? As always, we want to wish you guys love, peace, and chicken grease. RobLive, we're out.